Georgia and Kentucky get set to do battle in Athens this Saturday. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the Bulldogs and the Wildcats. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He's Cole the Bear Thompson. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, guys, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. We appreciate you guys getting us to 25,000 subscribers, but the race to 30,000 is now on. We can't do it without your love and support. So, again, make sure you smash like and subscribe. Also, check out our friends over at FANDUEL because, as always, we are brought to you by our friends over at FANDUEL, FANDUEL.com/SECU to join today and get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that's FANDUEL.com/SECU to get $250 in bonus bets today. The Georgia Bulldogs returned to action after last Saturday's disappointing result that saw them fall to the Alabama Crimson Tide yet again. They're looking to bounce back in a big way. Here comes the Kentucky Wildcats, who are looking for positive reasons or positive things to happen in their own season after a tough loss in Columbia, South Carolina to the Gamecocks. It's Georgia, it's Kentucky down there at Sanford Stadium, and we are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game. Once again, guys, hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. Joining me, as he always does, my co-host, colleague, partner in crime, Cole the Bear Thompson. Bear, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time and excited to break down this matchup with you.
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it can occur. Lightning strikes twice, but remember the last time that these two teams met up. What happened the week before? Embarrassing loss by Kentucky to South Carolina. Really put into perspective that this is going to be a long season if we do not get it all together. If you just go for it on fourth down, maybe we talk about one of the biggest upsets in college football in 2024. We talk about one of the biggest upsets in college football in 2025 because you got nothing to lose in Georgia. They're vulnerable. How do you respond after a very disappointing and heartbreaking loss to where a couple of things go your way? Maybe you're sitting undefeated and the favorites to win the national title.
Yeah, Bear, an 11 a.m. Central Time kickoff there, noon Eastern locally in Athens, Georgia. This game being televised on ABC from Sanford Stadium. Bear, Georgia is a 20.5-point favorite. The over-under sits at 48.5. Georgia leads the all-time series 64-12-2. And you mentioned it, Bear, the last meeting. Georgia won that football game, in case you guys forgot, 13-12. I mean, it came down to the wire. The Dogs' offense couldn't do much of anything. Give Kentucky credit for that. But you're right, Bear. It was the week after Kentucky looked down and out, season maybe going down the tube. They got embarrassed by the South Carolina Gamecocks a season ago, and kind of similar to the setup we're in now. And they came out, played a good football game, at least on the defensive side. Some questionable coaching there at the end. Georgia able to escape by the hair of their chinny chin there in Lexington, Kentucky a season ago. But that being said, Bear, this is a new season, but the questions are very similar. How does Georgia respond? I mean, I think that is the big question in this football game. I think you and I would both agree Georgia is the vastly superior team from a talent standpoint. They check essentially every single box in the standpoint of we could go down, position by position by position, and Georgia essentially, Bear, has the advantage at every single one of them. I do think that is a difference from last year's game to this year's game. Last year, Kentucky had the defensive personnel to go toe-to-toe with Georgia. They had the defensive personnel. They had NFL bodies all across the defensive side to give themselves an opportunity to win. I don't know that they quite have those bodies this season, but I will say this, because Georgia's obviously dominated this series. I mean, the numbers speak to that. But even talking to Georgia fans, Bear, when I was in Athens this past weekend and we were kind of looking ahead, past the Alabama game, if you will, just talking about the schedule that lie ahead. And when talking about this Kentucky game, Georgia fans, I mean, they obviously expect to win, but all of them said the same thing. Rock fight. It like Mark Stoops and company, it seems as if Kentucky, even though Georgia essentially wins them all, Kentucky always brings a really physical battle to Athens, or a physical battle just when they play them. The games in Athens have been a little bit more lopsided, but so you kind of know what you're going to get. I just wonder, does Kentucky have the bodies to play that type of game yet again? And obviously, if you're Georgia, Bear, you're looking to bounce back in a big way, probably take out some of your frustrations from the Bama game, build off the positives that you did against Bama, but certainly take out some frustrations. I don't know if run the score up is the right way to put it, because Kirby, not necessarily known for doing that, but Georgia's going to want to come out in front of the home faithful and put together a complete performance.
The problem right now with Kentucky is usually they can rely on their defense to get them out of some trouble. And right now, that's just not the case. They're 82nd in scoring. They're 105th in total yards allowed. They're 104th in passing yards per game. They've struggled mightily to be able to reignite that defensive feel from even last season when you had guys like Maxwell Harrison on the outside and a couple of other great defensive linemen. Then you don't have an offense that can counteract everything. You do have the ability to run the football. Again, Seth McGowan's been a great running back, 387 yards in the season. Last game against South Carolina, had a $112. I mean, they were able to move the football on the ground, at least at times, but you got the quarterback situation. Cutter Boley, 2 interceptions, bad fumble. 2 interceptions, bad fumble, 1 pick six, 1 scoop and score. And this was a South Carolina defense that still is trying to put together itself as a very cohesive, balanced unit. And there's a lot of question marks when it comes there. Georgia, I don't think, has those question marks. The thing is that you are right, though. This is a dogfight. This is a rock fight. We're going to go ahead and find some thumpers that don't play in their side of the sandbox fair, and they're going to go ahead and lay ham. Like, that's just the way that these games go. So it feels like that if they can get out to an early lead, force a couple of turnovers on Gunnar Stockton, or do what Alabama did and capitalize inside the red zone, we could see this maybe going into the fourth quarter being 10-point swing. Maybe Georgia, if they just find their way to punch it on in, they get up by 17 and they could start feeling a little bit more comfortable. The thing right now that I just worry about with Kentucky is this is who you are as a team. And we don't know if this is who Georgia is as a team. Georgia had a few errors in that Bama matchup. I mean, a drop touchdown pass, a red zone fumble, a decision to go for it on fourth down instead of settling for the points. We're talking about potentially 10 to 13 points being left on the board in favor of Georgia that would have had them annihilating Alabama. And now they get to do that against a team like Kentucky who doesn't have that secondary element or the resources to be able to look back and say, well, we struggle here. We're good in this spot.
You mentioned it, Bear. My mind went to when you're talking about the defensive side and some of the guys they don't have. I don't think there's a Deion Walker on that Kentucky defensive line like they had a season ago, the kind of one-man wrecking crew that gave them a chance up front in every single game. I'm intrigued to see, Bear, specifically from the Georgia perspective, the third down defense.
Yes.
Alabama starting out the game 8 for 8 on third downs. And, I mean, you were able to make some adjustments, but they still finished well over 50%. And, I mean, listen, Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, they don't need us to say this, but they know it. You can't make a living doing that. So I'm excited to see what Georgia does defensively. You'd have to imagine third down, stopping them on third down is going to be a real key point of emphasis in this football game. I would imagine they are going to be much better when it comes to that side of the football and just that part of the game, getting off the field on third down, not allowing Kentucky to extend drives. Because I think, Bear, honestly, if you are Kentucky, the recipe for an upset, that's something you'll have to do, right, is play keep away, put together 6-minute, 8-minute drives, probably win the time of possession somewhere like 35 to 25, kind of like what Bama did. That's going to have to be your recipe for success. Now, can Kentucky do that? I don't know that they can because, Bear, where I really struggle to see a path for Kentucky is can they find any semblance of balance with Cutter Boley under center? I think it's going to be a really tall task to ask him to go in there and put together a competent passing performance that would lead to Kentucky maybe even making this a fourth quarter game.
Kentucky had one play over 20-plus yards to the air on Saturday against South Carolina. One, and it was a 53-yard game by Willie Rodriguez. Outside of that, they were very much a one-dimensional offense. Now, you did bring this up. Third down efficiency. Georgia enters this game ranked 93rd in the country in third down conversion. They're giving it up 40.7% of the time. Here's the thing, though. You look at Kentucky. Kentucky's only converting on 43% of the time. So it is an actual pretty even balance when it comes to we don't usually allow you to find that much success, but when you do, you capitalize versus we can't get the ball moving anyways. So that could benefit you if you are if you are Georgia. What I wonder about with this game is, do you just run it down Georgia's throat until they basically have to scream uncle? And then they send blitzes, and then they go into the backfield and they pulverize your defensive line. And then you're lucky. And what happens is Cutter Boley understands he's going to get hit. But because of you've been running it so efficiently, and now you're seeing as Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart go ahead and say, we're going to corral the box, we're going to throw down 8, we're going to send a delayed blitzer. you get that one-on-one matchup, whether it be with Josh Caddis or whether it be with Kendrick Law or whether it be even go with Willie Rodriguez or Jamori Macklin, and they just win downfield for a big explosive 40 or 50-yard touchdown. And that maybe gives you the momentum to get back into this game. It really does feel like for Kentucky, you're going to have to rely on a lot of self-imposing capabilities, winning in certain areas like forcing a red zone turnover, putting yourself in a position where you have a great special teams punt return that gives you the ball at, say, midfield, and then explosive plays connecting once or twice throughout the game to make this, I think, a 4-quarter battle. It could happen. I think it absolutely could, because, again, this is always one of those games that you think you know what's going to happen, and the entire opposite does. But if we're just talking about the way that you can play a game and the way that you can make the secondary adjustments, Kirby can do this in his sleep. I mean, Kirby can easily put this team in a position to where they figure it out by the end of the 2-minute timeout, and then they just coast their way to a 28-0 differential in the last, 32 minutes of action. I don't know if Kentucky has the dudes to be able to do that this year. And that's been a problem. And that's something that we've talked about since really July when we were at SEC Media Days. It felt like that there was no life, and it felt like that if there was one team that you couldn't buy a lot of, not even hype, I would just say deliverance into, it was Kentucky, because of the way that they were built and the way that they were responding to conversations early on in the year.
Two programs in very different places, that is for sure, Bear. That being said, let's go ahead and lock in some picks and some predictions. That's good with you, Bear. Do you want to start, or you want me to take the honors?
I'll do this. Kentucky fans already don't like me, but you don't like me because if I'm telling you the truth. You don't have an offensive line that for years has been able to be that big blue wall. Your rushing ability is great, but you don't have that secondary counterpunch when it comes to the passing attack. And you did for a while. I was very high on this team and what they had with Berrien Brown and Dane Key, and I really did like the bringing in Brock Vandagriff as a veteran player. But you did nothing with it, and eventually you ended up falling off the coast after a week 5 win over Ole Miss. And then you put yourself in the position of, well, now we're kind of stuck in a limbo spot. Usually you have a defense that can bail you out of trouble. You don't have that this year. And I do think that while Georgia has a lot of questions going into this game, especially on the main one, how do we respond after a heartbreaking loss? And how do we not have the self-inflicting wounds, the penalties, the costly turnovers, the inability to get really anything going through the air consistently? They can play a brand of football that is suffocating. They are an anaconda. They will literally squeeze the life out of you by running it down your throat until you are exhausted. And then they'll just continue to do it, and they'll work past you. I look back at that Tennessee game, the third quarter coming on out of the break, and their ability to trust the rushing attack. Just go it for the ground nonstop and make you have to basically force them to throw. And right now, Tennessee's defense has its faults, but it's a better defense than Kentucky. I think Kentucky can make this at least a first half fight because again, this is always a game that I think goes down to a couple of miscues here and there. The problem is I just don't think Kentucky has the dudes to be able to get the job done. I don't think that they have the offensive identity that can counteract any explosive play that comes from Georgia. So Georgia's going to win this game. I think Georgia's going to potentially even cover this game. I know it's 21.5. It's big. But I don't think that Kirby's going to run out the score. One of my favorite bets this week is actually taking the win total. Taking the over-under at 48.5. Take the under. I think that Kirby is going to put in some backups in the fourth quarter, and they're just going to find a way to be able to maybe take a field goal. That would be the way I would kind of say this. I got a final score of 38-6. I just don't think that you're going to find much life offensively.
Well, Bear, they say great minds think alike. You and I are on the same page that I love the under 48.5. I do. Georgia in these situations, like you said, Kirby's just not one. You and I both have the utmost respect and think he's maybe the best coach in the country. But he's not like a Lane Kiffin. He's not a guy that wants to go out there and score 60 and like make a point in that way, that manner, that fashion. I think Georgia's going to be laser focused, locked in, ready to bounce back from the tough Alabama game. You're right. Kentucky, there's just not a lot of optimism. There's not a lot of juice. I was listening to some of the Kentucky content creators after the South Carolina game last week, and even them listening to the sound of their voices. Barrett was very apathetic. I think they even know they know they're not good. They know this season's not going anywhere. Kentucky fans, take your hate away from Bear and direct it at me in the comments if you like. But the reality is the reality, and it's a harsh reality right now. Georgia is known for their signature death march, and that's kind of what you were referring to coming out of that third quarter, where it's like an anaconda suffocating you, just this slow, just painful death. You must die. And Georgia inflicts that upon its opponents a lot of times. I think you're going to see a lot of that. I think it's going to be a lot of run game. I think it's going to be a lot more Chauncey Bowens, maybe some Nate Frazier mixes in. I think the emphasis is going to be on the ground and winning at the point of attack. I don't think it's going to be anything flashy, anything sexy, but I do think Georgia wins. I do think Georgia covers. I think they win this game comfortably. I would be really surprised if Kentucky reached double-digit points in this game. I really would. I think Georgia's just going to dominate defensively. They're going to bounce back the right way from, I'd say a disappointing defensive performance against Alabama. And anytime you give up the third downs the way they did, I think they, especially the first half. Here's my big question too, Bear. We didn't mention this. Does Georgia get off to a better start?
Yeah.
They have to get off to a better start. I think they will get off to a better start because, again, I think that's going to be something else, a point of emphasis. And I don't think Kentucky's a team, like a Tennessee or an Alabama that can come out and punch Georgia in the mouth necessarily and set that early tone. So I like the Dogs as well, Bear. Give me Georgia 34, Kentucky 7. Very similar to what you have. I love, like you said, though, I love the 48.5 because I just think simply Georgia's defense is going to be suffocating in this matchup. Kentucky's going to be one-dimensional, not going to be able to do much of anything. I think Georgia's going to have their way. And again, it's going to be a nice get-back, bounce-back win for the Dogs Saturday in Athens.
The reality is, unfortunately, unlike Sam Pittman at Arkansas and maybe even a little bit of Hugh Freeze down at Auburn, the buyout is incredibly lucrative when it comes to Mark Stoops. But also, is it time to start just not caring about what the price is for hitting a reset? This is where we are right now when it comes to Lexington, Kentucky. And honestly, I feel bad for Kentucky fans. Great coach, great mind, forever should be remembered for what he's been able to accomplish out of Kroger Field. But the writing is on the wall that change is necessary, and it needs to happen quick if you want to go ahead and steer the ship in the right direction by 2026.
Yeah, it feels like it's run its course, no doubt. A conversation we'll probably be having all season when it comes to the Cats. Guys, we'd love to hear from you. We're both taking Georgia to bounce back and win at home. You agree with us? You disagree? Georgia, Kentucky, who wins Saturday at Sanford Stadium? Guys, it's going to do it all for us. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Before we get out of here, do want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel because, as always, we are brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel's got you ready for the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. New customers can bet just $5. Get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet $5. If it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You can build parlays, bet player props, ride the live lines, whatever your style. FanDuel's got you covered. The NFL season is here. The MLB playoffs are here. College football's in full swing. Don't look now. College basketball even is around the corner. The only question is, are you ready to play? Visit FanDuel.com/SECU to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Once again, FanDuel.com/SECU to get in on the action today. Guys, it's going to do all for us. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure, like I mentioned, you like and subscribe. Follow along on social media. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, check out our website, SECUnfiltered.com. For Cole the Bear Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. We're signing off. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. We will catch you all on the other side.